welcome to Young Turks, the show that puts the spotlight on young Indian achievers every single week and takes you through their journey to success. I'm Shireen Bhan, and over the next 30 minutes we'll put the spotlight on an educator, a foodie and two publishers. So stay on with us for the Young Turks ride. My guest today believes education has the power to transform lives. He started iDiscoveri, a social enterprise to awaken society. Let's catch up with Ashish Rajpal on Young Turks today. Nurturing and treating people with care seems to be in Ashish Rajpal's DNA. A born optimist, a leader and a man who believes education holds the key to awaken a society. iDiscoveri, a company started with the intention of providing experiential education in schools and leadership training programs for corporates, is the brainchild of this young Turk. So in 1996, Ashish gave up a flourishing corporate career which included stints at Procter & Gamble and French company Danone. He roped in like-minded individuals and started what he calls a social enterprise that uses training and education to transform lives and drive change. Today, iDiscoveri partners with schools, parents and corporates, offering tailor-made programs that focus on looking beyond the obvious.
The way I look at it, I think Indian education has done a reasonably good job in pockets, but if you look at the larger mass, I think we have a very long way to go. So our idea in schools is, can we bring possibility to each child in the classroom? And if we truly look at that, I think that's not happening. And the vehicle we have chosen is the adults in the school. There's nothing wrong with the kids.
Sure.
If we can get adults in schools to reconsider, whether it's the school heads or the teachers, I think a lot more can be done.
And how's that experience been to sort of rework the mindset, remold the way that they've been doing this for decades now?
Hard, humbling. I think we came into the domain with a lot of energy and ideas. And
were you treated like an outsider? Like, what do you know about this business? You know, try coming into our classrooms and doing this every day for 7 days a week.
Oh, sure. And that still happens. I mean, so I used to live in Paris, and then I came and sat outside the wooden benches outside principal's office, and sometimes never got to see them. But to be fair, there were enough people who were willing to listen and give us an opportunity.
Is it now a pan-India initiative?
Well, it's certainly in the metros we are established, but I think what I'm most proud of is that for a fairly young organization, we've been able to go to very small cities. We've helped set up a school in the sugarcane belt in Uttar Pradesh. We are doing a project with a large corporate house which is setting up rural schools. And of course, we worked with some of the large schools in India.
So are you going to be getting into the infrastructure yourself? Are you going to be looking at setting up schools, whether it's with corporate partnership or in association with other schools? Are you looking at that model as well, or is it just going to be you providing teaching aids or you know, training to educators within existing schools?
I think we should stick to our knitting, which is the software, if you will. So if iDiscoveri can become the Intel inside progressive schools, I think we would have led a satisfied life.
Okay, let's talk about the enterprise side of the business now, because I believe that's been a phenomena that's began to catch on about 2 years ago, and one can understand that because we've seen the economy at an all-time high now, and the attrition rates are going completely crazy. But what's that side of the experience been like for you, and how different has it been from schools and actually dealing with corporates?
See, on the surface it appears like it's very different, and the domains are different, but at the back end, a lot of it is tied together. And for instance, our understanding of the human mind, our understanding of how people learn, a lot of these things come very useful. But in a nutshell, what we are doing in the enterprise space is India is growing very rapidly around clever people. What it misses is people who can hold these people together. And so leadership of a kind where it's about serving others as opposed to taking care of yourself, is that what we are helping develop? We are working with some large software companies, we are working with some startups.
Training hasn't had a huge premium in India, whether it's the education system or it's corporate India. Are you seeing that mindset change? Has it moved beyond just being mere symbolic or lip service, really?
Sure, and I think as it is, say, in your industry, it's coming out of necessity. Attrition is what is making it happen. I think the boom time of hiring a lot of people and getting the business and There was a time when you just had to make up the bench and the business would come, but now people are losing people, and especially at the top. I think
and there is a crisis of leadership.
There is clearly a crisis of leadership.
So how do you go about sort of rewiring organizations to nurture talent, to nurture leaders?
See, the methodology which we use is, and the phrase we use around it is boil and simmer, is we go to an organization and say, identify your 20 or 25 most key people. They don't necessarily have to be your most senior people, and give us a year with these people. And we put them through an intense experience which we call boil, which is about getting them to reconsider some of their mindsets about who they are, how they treat other people, what they aspire for, how would they rate themselves as a leader.
Ashish's transition from a corporate to an educator was a smooth one, given his background. Armed with an MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur, Ashish went on to do his master's in education from the Harvard University. But it was fatherhood that propelled him to turn his passion for education into a viable and sustainable business, though business is a term he's uncomfortable with.
I cringe at the word business, but yes, in the purest sense it is. What we're trying to do is to create a financially viable model for doing good work. And 10 years ago when we started as a camp. And through outdoors we learned that there's a lot more that can be brought to learning by doing and experience, and one thing led to another, and slowly we started using our technology, if you will, for leadership work and for learning and teaching, for training teachers, for school leaders, and slowly the momentum kind of built and more people came on board, and today we have about 60 people in 3 cities, and we worked with several large organizations, we worked with several schools. And hundreds and thousands of children.
I know you don't like to call it a business, but you know it has to be sustainable, and that's clearly one of the objectives that you have. How does it work? What sort of funding are you looking at? Are you looking at maybe bringing in strategic partners to fund the initiatives? How does it all work?
Well, right now it has primarily been financed by internal resources, and it's a little bit of a Robin Hood model, like I was telling you. What we earn on the enterprise side goes on the school side, but we hope that all 3 areas are going to be independent. I think we are probably about 18 months away from any serious financial injection. My belief is, and for better or worse, I'm pursuing it, that we need to become a strong foundation before we get in resources, because financing very often kind of is like the high tide. All the muck gets hidden under that. So I think we are lining up the ducks, and we want all our work, whether it's philanthropic or otherwise, to be financially independent. I strongly believe that in the long term, if that doesn't happen, this story won't last very long.
With 20,000 people already having experienced the iDiscoveri programs, Ashish is now looking at expanding. Already in 3 cities, the company is also looking at ramping up to cater to the increasing demand. iDiscoveri is also increasing its focus on programs for corporate India. Their Crucible Leadership module is aimed at team building, developing corporate leaders, and hopefully curbing the attrition problem.
If you look at all these 3 domains, they are like all of 10 years old in India. If you look at education reform, if you look at serious leadership work in enterprise, or the outdoors. So it has got all the challenges of legitimacy which a sunrise domain has. So the moment you have high quality competition on the education side, there are a number of startups across the country which are happening, and some of them we are trying to support. Because I think it's very good for the domain, for competition to come in, for a certain kind of standard to establish. I mean, so tough love is how I would call it.
But you're dealing with young people, I mean, right from 7 to probably 70. What's the big change that you've noticed within Generation Next 3?
I think the experience of being young in India is something people are proud of. And I think that shows in their body language, the way they talk. I think that's wonderful. I think I'm very proud of that, and I think that's really, really good for the country.
Where do you really see yourself in the next 5 years?
I see iDiscoveri as a university of the future, and if we are able to create, I don't know how long it will take, whether it takes 5 years or 7 or 9 or 10, I actually don't care that much. If you're able to create a kind of education which helps each individual become what she was destined to, or at least take a step in that direction, I think we'd be doing a good job, and I think there's a long way to go on that road. So we want to play our piece on that.
Ashish, thanks very much for joining us on Young Turks. We wish you the very best of luck with iDiscoveri going forward.